Hello everyone, welcome back to channel. I am Nikhil Kumar. So far in this Linux series, we covered a lot of ground. We learned how to navigate inside Linux, how to search files and logs, how to edit files using Vim, how users, group, permissions and sudo works. So at this point, you already understand how Linux works under the hood. But there's one thing that DevOps engineers use on the daily basis, and that is file handling. So today we will focus on Linux file handling using cp, remove and the tar command. So let's get started. So before touching any file or command, one very important rule. Never practice Linux commands directly inside the system directories. So we have three major Linux system directories here. So first one is /directory. This is the root directory and it holds the entire operating system. Another is /etc directory. So /etc. /etc contains the system configuration file and one wrong edit here can break your services. So try to avoid modification in this particular directory. And the last one is /var. So /var stores runtime data like logs and the state files. And deleting these files can cause unexpected failures. So instead of experimenting here, we always create a saved demo directory. This way we learn confidently without risking the system. So I'm going to create a folder here. So let me clear out the screen first. So for creating a folder, we can use a command that is mkdir, that is make directory. I'm giving a name of the directory, that is file-demo. So here it created a directory with a name called file-demo. If I do ls here, we can see the directory got created. Now I will move inside this particular directory, so we can use a cd command. Now I'm inside the file-demo directory, and if I do ls here, there is no file located in this particular directory as of now. Now let's create some folders and files to simulate a real DevOps scenario here. So for that, let's create some files. So I'm going to create a couple of directories here. So for that, we can use the same command, that is mkdir. If we want to create a multiple directories with a single command, we can use this approach. Like we can give multiple directories name with one space. So configs, logs and backup. So it will create three directories for us. As you can see, it created the three directories separately, but with the help of only one command. Now I will create some config files in these directories. So for that, I am going to use echo command, echo app_port equal to 8080, and I'm going to store it inside the configs. And I'm going to create a file with the name app.conf under the configs directory. So the file got created. Let's verify it very quickly. So the app.conf got created under the configs directory. Similarly, I'm going to create another file, that is echo db_host equal to localhost. And I'm also going to create this file under the configs only, and it's having a db.conf. Now we have a files to work with and it's safe to break things here. So if I do configs here, ls configs. So now let's start with the copying the file safely. So for that, we have a command, that is cp command. In DevOps, copying file is not an optional thing. It's just a protection. Before editing any config in production, we always take a backup. So I want to copy app.conf file to the backup folder, because if I want to make some modification and if something got break into the production, so I have a backup file to roll back to the previous version. So how we can do that? So for that, we can use cp configs app.conf. So we just need to give a precise path of that particular file. And then we need to give the folder or the location where we need to copy that file. So we need to store it under the backup folder. So if I hit enter, it copies the file under the backup folder as well. So if I do ls here, we can see the file got copied here. If I see the content here, using the cat command, it's under backup and app.conf. So it's having the same content which is stored under the configs file as well. So now if something breaks, I still have an original file and I will roll it back to the previous version. Now what if I want to copy the entire directory? So right now in the configs, I have two files. So I want to copy the complete data of this particular directory. So we can use a -r option. So cp -r configs. -r stands for recursive. So it will copy all the files under the config folder to the backup directory. If I hit enter, it copied all the files. If I do ls to the backup file, so we can see it copied the complete directory along with the files here. So if I do ls backup config, So we can see it copied all the file along with the directory. So using -r, we can tell Linux copy everything inside the directory, including the subdirectories and the file. So without -r, directories don't move. Now -r copies the structure, but there's still a problem. By default, Linux does not preserve permissions, ownership, or the timestamps. That's where -a comes in. -a means archive. So it preserves permission, ownership, timestamps, and everything about that particular file. So if I do cp-a configs and the backup and hit enter, I already have a files which is being updated by the -r option. So if I do yes, yes, now it copied the file along with the permissions, ownership, and the timestamps as well. So if I do ls-l and the backup, and as we can see, it preserves the permissions, timestamps, and the ownership as well. As of now, the ownership remains the same for all the files because I am using a root user. But the timestamp, if you notice, it's 1349. And the recent file which I copied later, it's 1351. So it preserved the time of those files. This is what you should use on your servers. Now let's talk about moving and renaming the files. So for that we have a command called mv. Let me clear out the screen first. mv is a command which can be used to rename the files or move the files as well. Renaming is very important in rollback strategies because instead of editing a file directly, we rename it first. So if I do ls here, so we have 3 directories here. Now I want to take up a backup of the config, that is the app.config. So if I go inside the configs, so inside this I have 2 files, but I want to take a backup of this. So what we can do, I can rename it to the back file. So if I use mv app.conf and app.conf along with the new updated name back, if I hit enter, if I do ls again, we can see the file got renamed as a app.conf.back. Now we have the original file is safe. If something goes wrong, we can restore it back with this particular backup file. mv is also used to move files. So if I want to move this file to some another directory, so we can use mv dbconf and I want to move it back to the backup directory. If I hit enter, so it moved the file from here. So as we can see, db.conf is not there. And if I do ls to the backup directory, the db.conf is moved here. And one important thing to remember, move command is atomic on the same file system. That means it either succeeds completely or fails completely. Now comes the most dangerous command in Linux, that is rm command. Rm means remove, and there is no undo, no recycle bin in the Linux system. As you can see in the Windows system, we have a recycle bin. If we delete something, it goes to the recycle bin. But if we delete something in the Linux system, it doesn't go to the recycle bin. Now let's remove the file. So for that we can remove, let me go to the previous directory, and inside this I want to delete one file from the backup folder. So what we can do, rm backup and the app.conf. Now it's asking to delete the file. If I press yes, so it will delete the file from this particular folder. So if I do ls here to the backup, we can see the app.conf got deleted. Now let's remove a directory. So for that as well, we can use a rm command. So rm space and the directory. So let me delete the backup, and under that we have a config. As you can see, it's not able to delete the directory because it's having a couple of files into this particular directory. So for that we can use a -r option, that is recursive. The same option which we use in the cp command, which will be used to copy all the files under a directory to the another directory. So similar option we can use here. If I use the same command, but with -r option, it's asking for yes or no in this. So if I hit yes, and it's asking for the different files which is under that particular directory, yes, yes, and yes. So now it deleted all the files and directory from the backup folder. So if I do ls to the backup, we can see the config folder got deleted along with all the files. So as you can see, it's asking for a prompts right now to delete a file. But if we are sure we need to delete this directory, we can use a -f option along with the r. So if I do ls here, and if I want to delete some directory, so let's create some demo directory into the backup folder again. So mkdir backup and configs. And inside the config, I'm going to create a couple of files. So touch test.txt. Now inside the backup, we have a config folder, and under config I have one file that is test.txt. Earlier I used rm-r and it's asking for a prompt. But I am sure like I want to delete this directly completely. So what we can do, I can use a rm-rf and the folder name. So backup configs and hit enter. It will not ask for any prompt here because -f stands for forcefully. So it will delete all the files which is under that folder along with that folder irrespective of any prompts. If you ever feel confident running rm-rf command, that is exactly when mistake happen. Always double check the path before pressing enter. As you can see, I just hit the enter and deleted the file. But in the production, you mistakenly hit enter when deleting some file or mistype something. Then the problem will happen. So always try to double check the path before deleting anything. Now let's talk about links. Links are used everywhere in Linux, whether it's your logs, binaries, and deployments. In DevOps work, we mostly use symbolic links. A symbolic link doesn't copy a file, it simply points to it. So let me show you here. So in the configs folder, I have one file that is app.conf. Now I want to create a symbolic link for that. So we can use ln-s configs app.conf.back and to the current.conf. If I hit enter, it created a symbolic link from app.conf.back to the current.conf. Now let's check it. If I do ls-l, and here you can see this clearly. Current.conf is linking to the original file, that is app.conf.back file. If the original file changes, the link will automatically reflect the changes to this particular file as well. And this pattern is heavily used in the real system where we are having a version configuration, blue-green deployments, and the log redirection. Now watch what happens if the original file is removed. So let's remove this file, rm and the file path. If I hit yes here, now the file got deleted if I do ls to the config folder. So there is no file located with the name called app.conf here. And if I do ls-l here, we can see marked as a red here. And this is called a broken symbolic link. And yes, this causes a real production issues if you're not careful about it. Linux also has hard links, but in real DevOps work, symbolic links are what you will use almost all the times. Now once you understand how files are linked, let's talk about how we protect them. So before any production change, DevOps engineer creates a backup, and this is where the tar comes in. Tar means tape archive. It bundles files into a single archive. So here I am going to create a compressed backup of the configs folder. So let me create a couple of files in the config folder first. So inside the config, if I do under config, cd configs, as of now I don't have any files. So now I want to create a couple of files here, and for that I am going to use the same command which I used earlier. So instead of retyping the same command again, I can do a reverse search. So in the shell as well we can do a reverse search. So for that we can use Ctrl+R button. So it opened the reverse search for us. And if I start typing the command which I used earlier, so I use echo command. So if I start typing EC, so it showed me the complete command which I used earlier. If I hit enter, as we can see, there is no file under the configs folder because I am inside the configs folder only and there is no such directory inside this. So let me go back one directory and let's run the same command again. So now it created a file under the configs folder. Similarly, I use another command for the app. So I will be using the same approach. Ctrl+R, echo, :app. So it took me back to the previous command which I used to create a file that is app.conf. If I hit enter, so it created a file for us. Now I have a files under the configs folder. So now let's create a compressed backup of this config directory. So for that we can use tar-czf and the file name which we want to give to our tar file. So config-backup.tar.gz. This is the extension we need to use. After this we need to give a directory name using which we need to create a single archive. So config is a directory. So let me explain these flags very quickly. -c is create, -z is gzip compression, and -f is the file name. So here I am using all three options together. So that's why I use single hyphen here. If I hit enter, so it created a tar file for us. So if I do ls here, we can see the config hyphen backup tar got created. And if I try to open this using vi, it's having two files under this, tb.conf and app.conf. If I come back here, now if I want to extract this file, so how we can do that? So we can use the same command, tar hyphen xzf. Here x stands for extracting the file, and we need to give the tar file path. So config hyphen backup is the file name, and as we can see, it extracted the file. If we do ls here, the file got extracted. As of now, we are in the same folder. That's why it doesn't show any changes here. Let me copy this tar file to another location. So if I do cp config hyphen backup to the previous directory. So if I go one directory back, so here I have a config backup.tar.gz. Now I want to use the same command to extract the file. If I hit enter, it executed successfully. If I do ls here, so here we can see there is one more directory got added, which is being extracted from this tar file. If I do ls to this, it's having all the files which is a part of a config file under the file hyphen demo. And if I do cat here, configs app.conf, and it's having the same content. This is how backups and restores are done in the real system. So let me show you a real DevOps workflow. So before editing any config file, we do this. So let me go to the file hyphen demo directory. And if I go into the configs, so we have two files. Now I want to edit the app.configuration file. But it's recommended to take a backup when we are working in a configuration file in production system. So what we can do, we can use a cp command here, cp-a app.conf to the app.conf.back. Why I use hyphen a here? Because it will preserve the permissions and timestamps and everything about that particular file. This is one approach to take a backup of this. In that approach, we have an older file with the same name here. Now if I edited this file and something got break, I have a backup already available on my system, so I can use the mv command, roll it back to the previous version. So there is no panic, there is no outages, just restore and move on. And that brings us to the end of this video. So today we learned how to move files safely, how to rename and move configs, how symbolic link works, why remove command is very dangerous, and how the backups are created. And this is the daily DevOps work. In the next video, we will talk about environment variables and the runtime configuration, because containers, services, and the CI/CD pipeline depend heavily on the environment variables. And remember, we don't learn Linux by only watching. We will learn things by doing or by breaking something. If you found this helpful, hit like, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.